Boom. No, not yet. Boom. There we go. According to that, I am live. My name's Hiko Simon. This is Tokyo tonight. It's 9:30 p.m. Japan Standard Time, Sunday evening. Great to see. We've already got lots of people in the comments. I'm feeling a lot better. I've had this weird sort of. You'll be fine there. We've already got so many people in here. We've got Lara. Boom. First. I think that's the first time you've made it in here first as well. Congrats on that. But Dan H. We've got Dan. Kerberos Tenchi makes it in here third. Good to see you in here. Lara also not feeling well. Don't have a fever anymore, but voice is gone. So sorry to hear that, but I hope you get better soon. Believe in yourself. Good to see you there in the chat. We've got who else we got in here? Tadom. Good to see you, Tadom. Speech to text. Is that your excuse for? I'm missing something now at the moment with comments. I don't know. We've got Shubis. Shubis is here. Never fear, indeed. And is that? Oh, wait. The comment is just updated. Audio problems again. Already? Really? Is it doing the thing? Wait. Okay. So it looks like it's working. But if I unplug Bluetooth, that will fix everything. Okay, let's unplug the Bluetooth. That should fix it. Let me quickly check the settings again and just see that that didn't mess anything up. It is on the Yeti. This is the Yeti. Let's raise this up a little bit. See if we can get this working well. Audio doesn't sound great though. Really. I mean, the indicator is good on this. So why is this? Is it like, oh, I wish I could hear what it sounds like. Maybe I can if I listen to myself on my phone. Hide. Is the sound really bad? Because the sound indicator looks like it's fine. Now the sound is good. Okay, well, if the sound's good now, I mean, it's close to my mouth. It's sensitive. I can see the indicator moving, which tells me that the sound is good. But, okay, please comment immediately. If there's a problem, I can switch. The sound is good now. Okay. If there's a problem again, I will just switch to the webcam, my built-in microphone. But hopefully this should be working. And yeah, it looks like it probably was the Bluetooth causing problems. So yeah, okay, good to see everyone. Anyway, how you all doing? Yeah, the Thursday rainy season officially ended in Tokyo. There's kind of a total of maybe like less than a week of rain for rainy season this year. So, but we are now in the pattern of having basically 36, 37 degrees Celsius, followed by these crazy lightning storms at night when things cool off. Tokyo sort of does this. I've mentioned this before. The heat island effect, all the concrete and the skyscrapers in the city cause these really weird vortexes that happen over the city at night, which cause these really crazy electrical storms. So we've started getting those. It's been too hot to run during the day, plus I wasn't feeling well. So I went out for my first run in a week yesterday. And just in the evening, when it was starting to cool off, it was getting to the low 30s. And I went out and it was starting to be a lightning storm. And at least given that I wasn't struck with lightning, it was actually, yeah, quite nice watching all the sort of natural fireworks and cool with the rain. So I guess that's what we're in for the next few months. But yeah. Now we've hit the official time that I would say do not come to Tokyo for the next couple of months. It's just it's pretty awful, and it's slightly worse every year, but it's pretty awful at the moment. Yes, indeed, typhoon. The first typhoon. I don't know if it's typhoon number 1. I don't know if they've numbered it that way, but there's a typhoon down by the Philippines that's rolling up, basically up towards Taiwan, but it's going to affect parts of the of Okinawa. So that's the first one of the year, and yeah, we got Steve Winwood. I don't know Roll With It. I know Chicago and his solo song. Basically, all the songs from the Karate Kid. I think of as Steve Winwood. But yeah, I hope everyone else is. I hope you're all having a good week. What's been going on with me? Not an awful lot, actually. Yeah, like I said, it's been kind of low key, just getting over this cold, which I think is just all the aircon and everything happening this time of year. But yeah, yeah. Getting back into the swing of things now, feeling a lot better anyway than last week, right? I was coughing all over the place. So yeah, also because I was coughing and I was just focused on getting through everything, I was very efficient with the topics. Not a lot of topics this week. There hasn't been a great deal of news. Of course, the stuff in America. Everyone in Japan, the perception in Japan is, for what it's worth, well, I think this is a view everywhere, that the election's more or less now over. um, that basically Trump has won and everyone's now starting to think about what that means. Good and bad. I'm not really going to judge it. It just is what it is. It's like a typhoon coming. You just know that it's going to come and just have to deal with it. But, you know, and it's not to say that things would necessarily be worse than they are in some ways. But, yeah, the yen is still high in spite of the intervention. All the work from that is pretty much already undone. But yeah, been a relatively quiet week. Hope everything is good with everyone watching. Hoping that you're all well. Do appreciate you keeping me company every week. And with that, why don't we just jump into the topics that we have and see where we go with it. I've been catching up a lot of YouTube at the moment. In fact, I actually meant to share, and I don't think I got around to it. I haven't finished watching the whole thing. But there's a channel called Japan Matters, who's a guy that I follow on Twitter, who's actually a political science lecturer. And he's got quite a good sense of humor. And he started to put out these videos, including the latest one I was just watching. Japan's most viral nuisance YouTuber runs for political office. So he talks both about the nuisance YouTuber phenomenon in Japan, as well as a bit about YouTube and so on as well. It's a fun video, and he's quite good at those. So yeah, well worth a watch. Nippon Steel have hired Mike Pompeo to lobby for the U.S. steel acquisition with the upcoming Trump presidency. Wow, I hadn't heard that. That's smart from Nippon Steel to get someone like Mike Pompeo, who I guess is obviously for sale. That said, I mean, the problem Mike Pompeo has is that he used to work for Trump. And I'm not sure that people who used to be in his cabinet, normally that would be a good sign of influence, but I'm not sure that's how things really work with Trump. Um, but yeah, it couldn't be worse. By the way, the rugby's also been great. I've been enjoying today. Italy looked very, very good. They played the Japan team up in Hokkaido and pretty much wiped the floor with Japan. I would say normally Japan is rebuilding at the moment. So on a normal day, the teams would be pretty closely matched, but Italy looked really, really good. So yeah, but yeah, very interesting news there about Mike Pompeo. So anyway, let's jump in. From Jesse Johnson from Japan Times, Japanese researchers are looking to submarine cables for faster tsunami warnings. This is the thing with tsunamis, of course, is that while Japan has the best tsunami monitoring, they use these buoys that I think they use radio signals, and I don't know why cables would be faster necessarily. I should have read the article. Yeah, they detect changes in ocean height, and you think, well, if there's a huge tsunami, then of course they could detect that there's a 100-foot wave coming. But that's not the way the waves work. Waves develop their height in shallow water. So when you've got like 1,000 meters of water, like you have immediately off the coast of Japan, it's very, very deep. Even when there's a tsunami, it's not, the sea level might only change, a little bit, but that builds up because there's so much volume of water in the stack of water. So they have these things to detect that. But, and Japan has the best tsunami monitoring network in the world. But of course, these tsunamis often hit the coast within minutes. It was remarkable. One thing that I remember about the Great East Japan earthquake was the first tsunamis, they took about 40 minutes to reach the shore. But there were like NHK helicopters flying up and down the coast, and they were you could watch it live, even though, it was relatively short notice. And kind of astounding to watch these waves that were predicted to be like, I think up to 5 meters. And, they were first thought to be 7. In some places they were over 30 meters, like over 100 feet. but you could watch them live. But clearly, even if you're talking seconds, it still is important to get that better. So yeah, kind of makes sense. I mean, tsunami's a serious business in Japan. So today, Japan lost, as I was just saying, to the Italian rugby team. What happened? So right now, as a result of the match, Japan. So what's this? So Japan was as high after beating Georgia, who itself is not, well, actually played very well against Australia last night. Japan got as high as 8th in the world, which I think would have been above Italy. But I think after this game, their ranking's going to drop down. But where are we at? I don't see the score anywhere, but it was like 40 points to 20, well, to 14 or something like that. Japan really couldn't get on the scoreboard. In fact, now I'm watching this. Why is this talking about Georgia? Jones. It's talking about Jones. But anyway, 7-24. That was the end of the game. I'm mixing my games up. But anyway, yeah, really entertaining game if you're into rugby. So that was a good game to watch, even though not very good for Japan. I saw something on my bookmarks today. Someone pointing out how the Nankai Trough earthquake is basically going to have such a huge impact on Japan because so much of Japan's population lives in a very narrow corridor. They talk about the megalopolis, which is basically that there is almost no countryside. There's no nature. There's a contiguous city pretty much all the way from the northern suburbs of Tokyo, all the way to Fukuoka, even to Nagasaki. It's pretty much unbroken urban area. And this is now a bit of an old graph from a couple of years ago. But this points out that the population inside the red area, 63,715,392 people, is about the same as the white area. So these are almost like two different countries. Everybody living inside this red zone. And this is pretty much the route that the bullet trains take, that the highways take. And yeah, I think it's definitely true. The Japan outside of this red zone is very, very different to within the red zone. Even within the red zone, of course, you've got Nagoya, you've got Osaka, Kyoto, Fukuoka, totally different cities with different cultures. But the population density, and just for scale as well, remember that Japan's about the same size as the UK or New Zealand or California. So it's pretty amazing to think that there are 63 million people living in this really narrow stretch. I got a lot of comments when I posted this on YouTube. When I posted this on Twitter earlier today. Some people asking why is everyone crammed into this area? The real answer is mountains. Japan is a crazy mountainous country, and these are all the little sort of flat arable lands where you could grow where you could grow rice in between. So traditionally people have sort of crammed into this area, and of course it's close to the sea. But I think it's also a really good reminder, even to me, that, yeah, Japan out in the white areas is much less dense and actually, yeah, a much more laid back and very different sort of an experience. So while definitely the urban image of Japan is definitely in this red zone, and some of my favorite cities here, Fukuoka, Osaka, Hiroshima, Nagasaki, Osaka, Kyoto, Kobe, Nagoya, they're all crammed into this little red belt. It's really important to get out of the red belt as well. And you don't have to go too far to go into places like, Tohoku, Hokkaido, Nagano Prefecture is great, Shizuoka Prefecture, most of that is outside of this, the different islands. Yeah, it's really worth seeing Japan. However, the Nankai Trough earthquake that everyone talks about is an expected megaquake, which would happen basically where Shikoku, where this island down here is, and it is predicted. I think it actually would happen on this side, but it would cause tsunamis that would go directly in towards the Osaka, Kobe area, and probably up to Shizuoka. It would affect everything from probably Yamaguchi Prefecture up to Shizuoka, and probably tangentially affect parts of, obviously Kyushu and Tokyo as well. But, this is when people are freaking out about the need for preparedness. They'd be expecting a tsunami, an earthquake, along the scale of the Great East Japan earthquake. And you saw how bad that was, and there's hardly anyone living up there. And this would happen pretty much along 2/3 of the red line. So, yeah, really, really important here to, be aware of the need to be prepared for pretty much an overdue imminent disaster in this area. I mean, everywhere in Japan's overdue for an earthquake, including Tokyo, but this Nankai Trough one, which would affect mainly Kansai, is particularly one to keep an eye out for. Comment from Dan H. Also wife of okay. Oh, so you're talking about Mike Pompeo still. So let's go in. I assume we're talking about Mike Pompeo, also wife of noted journalist and Hikosimon cosplayer Max Boot. Okay, I don't know who you're talking about there, but recently got indicted as a South Korean spy by the U.S. Justice Department. She was a former CIA analyst. This sounds really interesting, but I don't know who you're talking about. I feel like I'm missing a comment here. Yeah, we go on. She was implanting agents in the CIA and tried to help push through the deals of a trilateral pact, but making the US paying for it. I've heard that there was a case involving a South Korean spy, and everyone made me think, probably like everyone else, do they have the right career? But I heard this happens, and this happens. I mean, I remember there's a famous case of an Israeli who was caught spying against America and is imprisoned by America, spying for Israel. So certainly allies, of America do sometimes spy on it. But oh, interesting. Yeah. In terms of, I mean, Trump's big thing is making everybody pay for their own defense, and he's already talking about how important it is that Taiwan pay for their own defense. As well as, of course, he made a big deal about saying that he would welcome Russia invading anybody who's not meeting their 2% payment obligations to NATO. Which sent a lot of it caused a lot of outrage, and certainly it was probably inappropriate language for the president to say. But at the same time, like a lot of things with Trump, it wasn't based on zero. It wasn't a completely irrational thing to say. He he was right. These other countries were and are freeloading. Japan as well. But these countries made commitments to spend a certain amount on defense, but didn't see the need to, and were letting America take up the slack for their lack of defense spending. Germany, again, standing out, being a particular one on that. And taking a strategy, it seems like, that they would ensure their defense rather than spending on preparation with the military, instead focusing on economic ties to Russia as a way to keep things safe, which, actually was completely the wrong way to do things. So, on the one hand, certainly when countries have the obligations to, there again, I don't know that anyone's going to accuse Taiwan of underspending on its military. They've got mandatory military service, and they spend a lot. And who knows whether that's enough. But of course, what everyone really worries about is, how committed America is, basically isolationist. And American voters are intuitively isolationist. I'd worry how, willing they would be, in any case, if Japan or South Korea was properly attacked, the U.S. public wouldn't necessarily be in favor of, sending U.S. lives to die to defend those countries. And it's always relied on leadership in America being willing to make decisions about, defending allies, which might not be popular at home. Whereas when you have a real populist, but not limited to Trump, there's a question whether he might just go with the popular sentiment, which is, why should Americans die to defend other people? And he's exploiting that. And certainly when you have cases where it looks like South Korea may have been spying on America, that's going to feed into, at the very least, making them pay for more. So, that's bad move, but I don't know much about the story. So interesting there. Anyway, thanks for the information as always, Dan H. Also, good to see a PB. Seen any UAP on a recent run? Have I seen any unidentified aerial phenomenon? I've seen lightning. And there's tons of lightning. I wouldn't say that I've seen UAPs per se. Japan is famous for having lots of UAPs. In fact, there are lots of hotspots. And I used to be very much into, I'm going to call them UFOs, use the old-fashioned term. Japan is famous for UFOs, and there are some hotspots where lots have been photographed. And I don't know. My theory is that, for example, all the UFOs that get seen around Mount Fuji, for example, Mount Fuji is famous for having really weird weather phenomenon. It's a huge, almost perfectly conical mountain surrounded by pretty extreme sort of weather, and it generates sometimes like disc-shaped clouds, for example, with the lightning storms that you get. Ball lightning, I always wonder how many UFO sightings can be attributed to ball lightning, which is really not well understood. But, it's just sort of, it looks like a light orb that flies around like a UFO. And they see a lot of UFOs around Mount Fuji, and I wonder if it's got something to do with that. But who knows? could really be aliens. I have not seen any. I would love to, but I have not seen. Thanks everyone else for rocking into the chat. We've got fashionably late, but here, our wonderful moderator, Aaron. Thank you. Good to have you in here as always. And Eric Bailey pointing out that yes, indeed. So while sending money to NATO, I mean, it's not that they send money to NATO. America runs NATO, and those forces that, it's basically America does all the lifting when other countries are not contributing their share, but they're not pooling money or they're not giving the money away. I mean, you could argue they are in the case of Ukraine, which is a whole separate thing. But he spent money on, U.S. forces in Europe, which again, exactly, Americans ask, why should we do that? Universal healthcare, I think he tried, but again, to me, that makes more sense, right? That's what people would vote for if it was on offer. So we'll see what happens. The thing about Trump, to me, is that he actually, as a populist, as much as he and Republicans like to put down socialists, he had the Teamsters up speaking for him. He talks about, putting tariffs on foreign products and protecting foreign jobs and putting American first. Those are socialist agenda, and that's great if that's what people want. And why not have, spend more on universal healthcare if that's what people want? Spend less on the military. I worry about how the rest of the world will get by without America saving it all the time. But there again, when the rest of the world isn't pulling its weight, why not? I see that side of things. So certainly. Anyway, that is very much a squirrel chase. I'm going to focus back on the topics. Apparently, July 20th, this day, actually, that yesterday in history was the day that man, or humans, we should now say, walked on the moon. The Onion summarizing the actual quotes very well. In fact, actually, I think the first words of Dan Shepard in the first Mercury capsule were, "Oh Lord, don't let me fuck this up." It was actually, they had to change the quote. A famous scene from The Right Stuff that apparently is based in truth. So who knows if The Onion honestly has been right about Stranger Things, but very much hoping we'll see people back on the moons very soon. Well, Cobra Senshi, what I'm saying is that so is like trade protectionism and working with labor unions and so on. They don't like the word. They're allergic to the word, but I don't think they understand really what really socialism is. And right now, I see Trump actually kind of outflanking the Democrats by promising jobs and trade protection and isolationism and less spending on the military and more spending on Americans and veteran health care, and promising these things anyway. And those are great socialist talking points, even though he's also putting down socialists. I find the irony of everything. And I mean, it's all kind of moot because he could basically say whatever he wants now as he does because he's already won the election. But Indiana vote doesn't matter anyway, which is another thing. And when I did my politics degree, I studied electoral systems, and we had a system like America, which just always produced such distorted results that were remote from how people actually voted, that we changed the electoral system. And this is one thing as well when I talk with Americans. It's like, we're powerless to change the electoral system. Countries change their electoral systems all the time. I admit it is kind of unimaginable in America, but you can fix stuff. So anyway, Shubis watched the moonwalk live when stationed in Okinawa at the same time as SR-71 was taking off for Vietnam. Man, I love the SR-71. That's crazy that you got to work in Okinawa. Were you actually working on SR-71s? I guess you got to see them when you were down there. Such a great plane. There are so many great SR-71 stories. I believe there was a speed check one-upsmanship battle on the west coast of America once, where there was a regular trainee pilot was checking their ground speed, and it was 100 knots. And then someone in a more expensive plane tried to check their ground speed and one up the other pilot. And then another person came on, a commercial pilot came on the line and was sort of there's no reason for a commercial pilot to check their ground speed, but heard these other people checking their ground speed, so came in just to prove that he was in a jet plane, that he was the fastest. However, some F-16 fighters were training nearby, and they overheard this and checked them with the ground controller and got 500 knots or whatever. They did their ground check, and then an SR-71 pilot decided that he was going to end the debate There's so many great stories like that. It's a beautiful plane. The I just retweeted this. This Deadpool cosplayer is doing an amazing job. I mean, could it really be Deadpool? It could be. I mean, he's actually really in character and definitely mesmerizing there. Um, Yes, there was actually. Good call, Lara. There was an article about the actual discovery of lunar caves made by lava tubes that were existing as early as 50 years ago. So these are cool for protecting humans and equipment. In fact, I think there's something in the news very recently that they've actually now got like images that they've taken almost verifying now these tubes that you could go into in some parts, which yeah would be great because it would protect you from radiation without having to build radiation-proof facilities there. Kind of boring. Everyone has this idea of living in these like domes on Mars and the moon. But truth be told, safest place to live there will be underground, which would just be kind of boring. You'll just be underground all the time. But that is probably how this is going to work, and it would be good to get into that. Uh, P Diddy has been a brilliant Deadpool cosplayer for years. I had no idea. He's not Ryan Reynolds though. Oh, P Diddy Icy is the account person, not that. Oh, D Pity, got it. Okay, Kerberos Tenshi. As usual, you are way up on anime stuff. By the way, this also reminds me to everybody, just in case. I think I mentioned this before, Nihonjon, but his YouTube channel. If you do youtube.com/ is Dude Jericho. Especially to Kerberos Tenshi. Look at this channel. It's Nihon John, but his channel is Dude Jericho. He does this documentary series on like basically famous like idols and otakus and otaku idols. He does these mini documentaries and they're really well done, like really professionally. Like, is this like a TV documentary series? And I'm not really into the otaku thing or the idol thing, but he does it so well. And it is kind of captivating watching D Pity there. But you should definitely check out the Dude Jericho channel. He's got a great series. And thank you. I would appreciate any SR-71 video later because I've got a photo. I went to the Flight Museum in Seattle and I got to sit in the cockpit of an SR-71, which for me, there was a full space shuttle simulator there that I went into. And for me, the SR-71, I didn't think anything would top the space shuttle simulator. The SR-71 topped it. I got to sit in an SR-71 cockpit, a real SR-71 cockpit. It was amazing. So yes, definitely up for that. I was at the channel there. Thank you very much, Aaron. Highly recommend this channel. I also recommend Japan Matters, which I flashed up earlier. Again, I'll put this up on my Twitter. But this channel is actually probably for people here. There'll be a lot of people that would really enjoy that. I think it was great. Speaking of yesterday, I said I went out for a run in the lightning and the rain yesterday. Yeah, the lightning and the rain was such. Yesterday was actually supposed to be the Adachi fireworks. You might notice some people started to get upset that I was making too much fun of Adachi. Adachi is a beautiful place. It's got beautiful parks. It's part of Tokyo. And the thing about Tokyo is you could go between the richest neighborhoods. You could go between Minatoku. You could go into Roppongi Hills, Azabujuban, Setagaya. You could go into the richest, wealthiest parts of Tokyo. And you could go into the poorest, most high-crime parts of Tokyo, which are Adachi. And you would not really be able to tell the difference, probably. If you're coming from overseas, they're both clean, they're both safe. You'd start to notice some differences living in Tokyo after about a year. But the thing is, again, rich people are not ostentatious, they dress down, and not rich people are basically still, the neighborhoods are tidy and well looked after and safe. So, I make fun of Adachi as being the ghetto in Tokyo, which it is. It does have, statistically, it has all the things that correspond to low socioeconomic problems. Exists the most in Adachi, but it's a nice area. And some people are getting upset that I was always making fun of Adachi, even though I still stand by. As someone who used to have to catch a taxi home most nights, it got to a point where I would avoid taxis with Adachi number plates because the chances that you're going to have someone who smells like he hasn't washed in a few days in a beat-up taxi who's falling asleep while driving, always Adachi, the worst drivers. So okay, now I am beating up on Adachi, I guess. But Adachi had their fireworks festival, which I believe is by the Arakawa River, and there was going to be this huge event which Kaiji Mami went to among tens of thousands of others. It got cancelled at the last moment because this electric lightning storm that came in was so bad. They warned everybody, get out, basically, because the storm was so scary and bad. And I think I've actually got some images here. That's right. Everybody all lined up waiting for this huge fireworks festival. And by the way, Japan does amazing fireworks festivals. Oh, you can also sort of see the moon was like really low on the horizon and orange, even though it was cloudy. It was like the clouds were like really thin. But basically, this crazy lightning storm started just as they were announcing right before the fireworks. But the fact was, the lightning was better than the fireworks. I turned out the lights in here. I opened up all the curtains. I was watching videos last night with this lightning, with basically every couple of seconds there was like lightning outside the window. It was really fun to watch. Actually, it was as good as fireworks. But I also went out running in it, and it was nice. It's actually nice. You get the cooler wind cooling things off, cooling things down, still to 31 degrees, so still hot, even though it's at nighttime and it's raining and there's an electric storm. But it's much better than during the day. I actually like lightning myself. I enjoy lightning storms and rain, and it is something I like about summer here. The nighttime squalls are crazy, but yeah. But however, the situation was so dangerous that they did actually cancel the fireworks festival, which caused some chaos and I guess bad for those people. Here are some photos and some images of the lightning from last night, just when people started leaving the fireworks. But yeah, I think it was probably for the best that they moved people out of there. We've got more people in the comments. Nice to see. Oh, thanks for the vid from the Honjon as well. I highly recommend the channel. Pardon me. Yuri the best, our man from Ukraine, was up indeed. Hope you're having a good day there. Nice to have you with us. We've also got Softy Papa getting ready to come back. I've been following your adventures in the desert in America, getting ready to come back to Japan. So, yeah. Dan H commenting, you'll notice the difference between the buildings for one and the types of brands within them. Hiko Simon, the houses are very, very different. Yes and no. Really nice houses are hidden away in back streets. If you're walking along the main streets, in Japan, most buildings, even nice buildings, in good neighborhoods, don't use architects, so the buildings are all kind of ugly. What you will notice in a well-looked-after neighborhood is that there'll be more trees on the street. You'll also see that while people look like they're wearing the same clothes, they'll be much tidier. But you know what? Not all that different, actually. You will see, of course, expensive cars, but they'll be sort of covered up and parked away. So yeah, they're subtle. I don't think you'd notice the first time, but there are differences indeed. Aaron, +1 for July night storms. They are refreshing. They are indeed. You need them because the days are just miserable. Oh, back to it. I went back too far. Let's come back. Boom, 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 boom. So, another video that I watched today that was just good for people who are interested. This is from, what channel was this from? Let me see if I can confirm. It was General Knowledge. In my free time, I'm a nerd. I just watch history videos and geography videos. I love geography. And this guy went and did a video on how every prefecture in Japan got its name. Basically, not only what the kanji for the prefecture means, but why that prefecture has that name, the historical story behind all 47 prefectures in Japan. Which actually, I don't know all the stories myself. I learned a lot from the video, and it's a good channel. They do this for like Germany and America and Brazil, and they do this for every country. So it just happens that the video that they posted like one day ago happened to be on the prefectures of Japan. So if you're watching this, you're probably into that sort of thing. I'm into that sort of thing. It's a good video. How did each Japanese prefecture get its name? English meanings explained. So good video there, worth checking out. Karastenshi saw that in his recommendations. Yeah, link in the chat. I'll see if I can post a link. Let me do this. Certainly, I think Aaron can do it, but let me post that in there. I think I can post links because it's my channel and I'm the boss. Hopefully, you can see that. And it's a good video to watch. Strava, by the way, if you want to follow my running, if you actually run, there's a running social network. I always post on Instagram and on Facebook my running stats after I run, but I get those from the Strava app, which is an app for runners. And so I'm always interested in what they're up to. There is the fireworks that were cancelled, and the fire. Here's me running on the same night. Someone actually pointed out, by the way, oh yeah, there was a quake yesterday. There have been little quakes like every day lately, which is probably a bad thing. The quakes have been happening in different places, but they're all like the same distance away from Tokyo, but making Tokyo shake. But we've had like almost daily earthquakes, it feels like lately, which is generally a bad thing. But Tokyo always, of course, has a lot of channels. But there you go. Um, uh, wait. Oh, yes. I thought you were claiming the channel. That's right. I can post it too. Aaron can also post it, so we've got a double link there just in case you're not able to see it. But thank you, Aaron. I posted. Oh, this is exactly what I post on Strava. Actually, this is a photo. 6.1 kilometers. I ran a really good pace, but that was partly because I was worried about getting struck by lightning. That always helps. Also, lately, what I've been, I just took a selfie. I didn't take the selfie stick because I'm worried that's part of what messed up my shoulder, and it's not very good in the dark, and I'm running at nighttime lately. But I do make a point that I want to post the stats later. So I try to take a selfie at a traffic light or something when I'm halfway along the run. And there was a festival in Sugamo when I was running past last night, which actually isn't that far away from where the fireworks were. So I stopped and took a photo. Um, some people pointing out, they're saying, hey, I would have sworn this was a photo of you against a green screen if I didn't know that you were really posting the photos. To which I would say, oh, by the way, part of that's cut off there. Oh yeah, that's the thing. I've cropped the part of the photo, 6.1 kilometers at a pretty good pace there anyway, if I do say so myself. But yeah, what I've been doing is there's an AI feature that lets you separate the foreground and the background. So you can sort of make the background a little bit blurry and a little bit like darker and brighten up the foreground. So yes, the result is I look like I'm in a 1980 Star Wars movie as a result, and this is taken against a green screen. But it's kind of good. I thought it was very astute by someone paying attention there. But it is a real photo. I just edited it. 4 minutes 54 seconds per kilometer is too fast for lightning to take aim. That was the goal. That was definitely the goal. I was actually so I told myself when I did the half marathon that I was going to run like 5 minutes 30, 5 minutes 45 per kilometer for the first like 15K. And then I'd up it to 5 minutes and maybe like 4 minutes 50 for the final kilometer and go for it. But I was feeling kind of good, so I ran pretty much 5 minutes 05 for the whole 20 kilometers, and then I ran like 4:30 for the final kilometer. On this run, since I'm showing off and it's my own live stream, there was one segment which is like a measured 1 kilometer segment, which when I got to it, I knew where I was, and I hadn't run all week, so I guess I was feeling pretty fresh, and I was frustrated that I hadn't been running all week, so I wanted to get rid of the cold or the cough. So I went out for this run. I ran one of those kilometers. I ran the 4 to 5 kilometer mark in under 4 minutes. I ran it in 3 minutes 54, a clean kilometer. So that was, I mean, it was slightly downhill, but yeah, I really went for it actually, which is probably dumb because I hadn't run for a week, and you're supposed to take it easy. But there was lightning, and I felt good, so stuff happens. Anyway, again, Jesse Johnson of the Japan Times reporting. Atsui name. He's in northern Kanto as well. He's in a place where the temperatures get even worse than in the city. Crowdstrike happened on Friday in Japan. Anyway, was anyone in the chat at a workplace that was affected by Crowdstrike? I was glad to find out I was affected at work. Many companies. At first, everyone seemed to think it was a Microsoft problem because, of course, Windows was just endlessly rebooting. It turns out, ironically, if you're working at a place that uses Windows operating systems and cares about its security and is willing to pay for the most expensive, most reliable, network security software, those were the companies that were using CrowdStrike, and it was those companies that got affected. And I was at a company that takes its IT security very seriously, so the fact that they pushed a little buggy update to tens of millions of computers, and just basically they caused Friday to be sort of a write-off where I was, and it was kind of funny watching how it emerged. It was really interesting that there were lots of stories of this in Japan, like the moment that it started, and there were blue screen problems and everywhere. And also at the same time, just because the time zone, it was during the day, you could see it happening in Australia. And the way that the BBC took an hour to start reporting it, it was slow. I was seeing this seems really big, so it must get onto the BBC. And the BBC reported that this was a problem affecting Australia, which again, kind of disappointingly, I've got this view from New Zealand that the BBC is like the British, I guess I still think of it as the British Empire ultimate public, global news service. With this idea that they have correspondents everywhere and that, you can get a good spread of global news from the BBC. And I don't know, maybe they've been cutting back. But truth is, yeah, there are moments like this when you can really see that the BBC really does have a complete blind spot for the non-English speaking world. The entire world that uses Windows, which basically is everywhere except for China, India, Japan, Hong Kong, Singapore, everyone was going offline. But they were only hearing it from people in Australia, where it did have a very big impact, and were reporting it as an Australia-only problem, which again just goes to show that they really, and there is a thing, when you only see the world in English, we have this huge bias towards thinking that, the English-speaking world has all the sort of, all the best knowledge and information, and everything is all available in English, and this is why everybody learns our language to get into the pool of information that's available in English. And if you don't understand English, you're missing out. And since since they're missing out, we don't have to worry about them. We can just rely on English to follow everything. And this news was actually really interesting to me, that it was a real reminder that kind of colonial mindset that we have among English speakers, that if the news isn't coming out in English, it can't really be news, and it takes so much longer to come out that way. Was definitely visible. The fact that this was a problem only impacting English-speaking countries in time zones that were awake, when it was definitely not, just kind of showed to me why if you're an English speaker, you really should learn a language, and probably try not to pick too obscure a language, because there's so much experience and news and information in the world that's just locked up, seriously, just because English speakers are just so lazy about checking news from non-English speaking countries. Yeah. So who else was here? Dan H took a day off that day. He picked a good day to take a day off. Although I didn't take a day off, but I got a day off. So that was a bonus. So you could say that maybe I won that one. Thanks to Australia being the first to have the problem. New Zealand had it before Australia had it, but sure. Maybe it was a big and not a cyber attack in Europe and so on. Well, this is the idea. We all had it at the same time. It happened in the middle of the workday, both in Japan and in Australia. It didn't get rolled out in those countries first. Again, Australia showed their dependence on Windows operating systems, that everything went so badly. But yeah, no wind blows for 20 years. The first wave was all of the systems crashing and airport stopping and bank systems failing. The second wave was this tidal wave of tweets of smug Apple users saying, well, I'm using an Apple, so it doesn't affect me and I don't care. And yeah, that was almost as devastating as the first wave. But there we go. You're the best. You noticed in regards to Ukraine also that BBC, Al Jazeera often take 12 hours to one day to report something that everyone already knew through Telegram. Yeah. We noticed the same thing very much during the Great East Japan earthquake as well. All the Fukushima information took more than 24 hours to come out. And what was really frustrating was we would have people, especially in the English language Twitter, in other countries with 24 out-of-date information that they were getting from live TV services like BBC and CNN, that they were reporting 24-hour-old news. So, yeah. By the way, you're the best. I'm just curious if you have a take or not. I follow a guy, Dennis, I think it's Davidov, maybe Davidov. He's got a name like that anyway. I think he's currently living outside of Ukraine. He provides daily updates, summary of Telegram updates, basically. And he's a Russian-speaking Ukrainian, so he covers Russian sources as well. But he provides seems to be good information. It's in English. He's an airline pilot. But I basically I've narrowed everything down to just following him because there's too much stuff going on otherwise. I'm curious if you're familiar with the guy. Maybe because he only posts in English. Maybe you're not so familiar. You wouldn't need to. But I use him as my aggregator, and I find his channel really good. He gives daily updates and stuff. But yeah, no, definitely what you're talking about is something I've definitely noticed with big news from Japan. So definitely a thing. And it's a good reminder to everybody that, don't trust the lamestream media is not exactly the way that I would phrase it, but it is a reminder that, yeah, I think we have an arrogance and a comfort in English-speaking countries that we should, sometimes we need reminding that English language is not the center of the world, and, don't, yeah, again, it's a good reason to develop different perspectives on the world, which you can get through learning Japanese or Chinese or Spanish or whatever. U.S. airlines were tabled on Friday. AA pretty much gave up and just canceled everything. We have to admire the simplicity of how that happened, but there we go. The rest of Asia is just an afterthought, a back thought. That is indeed how it looks. Um, I am kind of looking at the got Dan recommending languages. French, Spanish, Chinese, German, and Russian are great languages for additional news. Japan can be, but it's pretty slow with updates. Yeah, Japan's only good for Japan, of course. It's a single country language, so maybe harder to recommend. So yeah, Dennis Davidoff, thank you for the spelling. I was going to spell Doff, and then I realized that's like I think I've actually got Davidoff like uh, body deodorant, not deodorant. That's not what it's for. Toiletries. I think that's more fancy than that, but yes. Uh, so I had to be careful of the spelling. But anyway, here's the guy who I use. Keep going. So yes, Crowdstrike memes. There were a bunch of good memes about Crowdstrike, but my favorite one was. Uh, CrowdStrike, you were supposed to protect Windows from blue screen of death, not create them. I quite like the Star Wars reference. Yeah, I think the prequels got a bit too much of a hard time. So yes, lots of keeping our partners grounded. Um, Lots of memes relating to Groundstrike, and nearly all of them are funny. First day at CrowdStrike, pushed a little update, taking the afternoon off. Fired, totally unfair. I suspect that's not true, but it was funny. So, CrowdStrike, you can't hack a computer that won't boot up. These are all true. That would be Davidoff. That is correct. That is how I stop myself smelling too bad, or I make myself smell worse, depending on your perspective. But not the Ukrainian war YouTuber. He's the other guy. Auntie Liana from Yokohama. Good to have you in here, Auntie L. As always, nice to have you join us. What else we got in here? Enough memes, but there were some good ones about the CrowdStrike thing. Oh yeah, this was a surprise. Um, I would have completely guessed that Japan has the oldest politicians in the world, but apparently no. America has the highest proportion of American politicians are the oldest in the rich world anyway. Look at this. It's like, uh, I mean, I'm not actually sure how to read this exactly. I suppose that means 15% between 28 and 43 percentile, 71 to 80, but much more than Japanese, which kind of shocks me in a way that American, politicians are so old. Um, and yeah, I don't know. Clearly, no idea why they'd be talking about that right now. But that is a thing. I always just assumed that Japan was worse, but there we go. Yuri, I'm curious on your take on this. So yeah, you usually watch Defense Politics Asia's analysis since you find it more neutral. You try to avoid the super pro-Ukrainian and pro-Russia stuff because it's biased. Absolutely. And I watch the pro-Ukrainian stuff for what it's worth. Although this is why I chose this guy, because he also like goes through Russian sources, but he's definitely not balanced. He's not even trying to be. So it's actually I can appreciate that, being from inside Ukraine, that you'd be looking for external sources that are different to what you're seeing internally. In fact, I might even look that up. So thank you for the tip there. Yeah, speaking of defense stuff, Japan, Italy, and UK are getting together to create basically their F-35, but not as good as the F-35 equivalent fighter, which would be ready by about 2030 something. And of these three countries, what could go wrong? An Italian, British, Japanese defense tie-up. Of all the countries that were going to mess up this, UK was probably at the bottom of my list of countries that I thought could screw this up. But no, it turns out UK suddenly doesn't have the money for it anymore, and has changed its mind. Totally, I mean, this could just end up being an Italian-Japanese fighter. Which would be kind of good. I mean, if they have a kind of a Lamborghini style like fighter jet, I mean, I imagine it'll be in the shop for repairs a lot, but it'll look really cool and probably go fast. I don't know if you could get like a Toyota Lamborghini hybrid like jet fighter, that'd be pretty good. From that perspective, really, including the Brits would only screw it up, I suppose. But yeah. But the Brits are good at shooting things, right? I mean, if there's a war, Britain's like immediately signing up to join in any war that's going. So from a fighter jet perspective, you probably want them, and at least for the guns. And I'd worry what's going to happen about that. That age, we are the most incompetent, docile, and poorest out of the three in the UK. Well, yeah, certainly that's how they're looking. Uh, they got Germany back in the. Oh, jeez. Teshi, too soon. It's been 80 years and it still is too soon for that joke. But yes, why not? I mean, Germany, hey, they made the Eurofighter, didn't they? That's right. Get Germany, Italy. The problem is you get Germany, Italy, and Japan making the jets, and Italy's just going to switch to Boeing like halfway through. It's not going to work. So yeah, uh, somebody invented a new version of the Japanese language. Uh, that somebody's made a new version, sort of easy to learn Japanese, which is interesting. They used AI tools to basically give it a whole bunch of principles to make Japanese really, really easy to understand. And it is easy in the sense that it's incomprehensible to everybody equally. But yeah, it's a novel writing system to represent the Japanese language using only Latin alphabet. It aims to make it more accessible. So this is someone who was learning Japanese and got frustrated, and they could do AI, but they couldn't do Japanese, so they used AI to fix Japanese. But it's interesting to have a look. I don't know why you would change the pronunciation of J to Y. Um, and yeah, there's something that there's something I remember about a joke going around years ago how Arnold Schwarzenegger, as governor of California, was going to change how English was taught in schools to help with the large immigrant population, and basically over different phases merge it into Californian English into English with a German accent. And I suspect this is something like that. But yeah, I mean that sounds good, right? I would buy one of those jets. I mean, even if it didn't do anything. Uh, Getting towards the end of the topics, but I did promise bears. Bears are, of course, increasingly a problem. There are more and more bear attacks happening in Japan. The bear population is growing, and population centers are moving out. People are running into bears, and bears are attacking people, including, of course, a few months ago I was talking about the karate expert who hand fought off 2 bear attacks. But his advice after it was people should never fight bears, especially not barehanded, except that guy. So yeah, Akita Prefecture, worried about more bear PSAs, created a poster warning people about bears. The problem being everybody pointed out the bear is far too adorable and cute and huggable and lovely and doesn't convey any sense of danger. And this is the problem. Japan is just too good at cartoons and mascots. And yeah, if they want to do it, it's like with the zoo drills where people put on the adorable animal costumes and run around and pretend to be escaped dangerous animals, and they just look like soft toy versions of them. And apparently this was the problem. The bear, be careful of bears picture. They've got this adorable looking picture of a bear that I must admit, if it was there, I just probably want to jump in and hug it. And I don't know if that's what people are doing in Akita. I mean, they're pretty hardcore up there, but there again, I think there are enough, in Japan to have a gun, there's like a 50-step, 10-year process to get one. But Akita is one of the places where farmers do go to all the trouble to actually get guns, and they do go out there and shoot them occasionally. But and maybe that's the problem. But yeah, someone points out they look too cute, just like real bears. Well, there you go. That's part of the problem, I guess. Um, yeah, Shibuya Station, which is lately insane and unnavigable, has become NHK posting video footage of what Shibuya Station looked like in the 1950s and 60s as it got developed, which is just incomprehensible now. That it looks like an outer suburb station, although it's still crammed full of people back then. But yeah. Uh, Bears beats Battlestar Galactica. I don't even understand what that means. Moving on, the finance minister admonished Korotaro for making comments about the currencies, saying that they appeared to help the yen strengthen against the dollar. So the yen right now right now it's too weak against the dollar. But yes, where the Minister of Finance saying stop talking about the currency because people listen. Basically, I read that and thought of The Life of Brian with the mother saying, now you listen here, he's not the Messiah, he's just a very naughty boy. That sounds pretty much like what the finance minister was trying to say about Korotaro, who probably does think he is the Messiah, so you've got that. Going home because of blue screens of death. Here's me talking about the BBC showing their kind of English-speaking world coverage bias, which was definitely there. That was my favorite meme. I blame Microsoft, but it was Crowdstrike in Microsoft. 10 years in Australia, they lost all their graphics, so they did like a a Comic Sans Microsoft Paint graphic showing how Microsoft outages were affecting them. Again, wasn't a Microsoft outage, it was a software affecting Microsoft, but there we go. Taro Kono Taro. I call him Kono Taro now because I called him Taro Kono on Twitter, and he personally addressed me, and he basically did the Muhammad Ali. He said, say my name. It's Kono Taro. Call me that. And you know what? If he personally tells me to call his name that way, I feel like I'm kind of misgendering him if I call him Taro Kono now. So yes, although I personally believe that in the English language you should stick to naming rules and cultural conventions across all cultures and languages, because you never know where someone's from necessarily. That said, when someone wants to be addressed a certain way, I follow it, and he told me that directly, so there you go. So yeah, that was my Friday, basically watching the whole world sort of collapse. I don't know, this happens regularly. I'd like to thank Americans for having, while, they didn't do very well with the electoral system, as, we had Aaron, of course, in Indiana talking about that. America, the founding fathers, I think were playing a lot of pranks on America. The Second Amendment, I mean, hilarious. The electoral college, I mean, a prank that just keeps paying off, hundreds of years later. And I think that the American national anthem is also a wonderful, wonderful prank. Now, the New Zealand national anthem sucks. It sounds like a bad school song. And a lot of anthems sing that, are that way. And people debate good and bad anthems. The thing about the American anthem is that it is objectively one of the hardest to sing anthems in the world. Both the words are hard, and it's like the octave range is insane. And so even people who are really, really good at singing, like, really, really get tested by it. And yet all 400 million people have to sing it like all the time, and almost nobody can sing it. So then you get a quasi-average like person who happens to be drunk sing it in front of a baseball stadium, and you just get this endless entertainment. I mean, my favorite, of course, is the Naked Gun, where the guy takes over, impersonates an opera singer, and is forced to sing the anthem, and he forgets the words and sings it out of tune. But yeah, think of how many celebrities have gotten into these magical moments of the anthem being sung badly, and it's really not their fault. It's a really, really hard anthem, and people who can sing it well, it is amazing, but it's just so hard. And again, I think that there's a lot of old slave-owning white men wearing wigs just rolling over laughing, watching everybody trying to sing the anthem that they set up America with. So credit to them. The Spanish national anthem, as there are no words. I didn't know that. Wow, the Spanish national anthem has no words. I guess the moment that they start saying words, they'll start getting into arguments about what accent it should be in. So I can sort of understand that. But there we go. Kiwis will start singing Advanced Australia Fair. When I lived in Australia, so Aussies are like Americans and Kiwis are like Canadians. And, Aussies are very nationalistic compared to New Zealanders. In New Zealand, we sang the national anthem once a year in the final school assembly. In Australia, you had to sing the national anthem in front of the Australian flag like once a week. Every Monday assembly, you had to sing the Australian national anthem. And I was living in Australia because my dad was there in the New Zealand military at the International Officer Cadet School. And so all the kids of the internet, of all the international military folks, the Indonesian military, the Indian military, the Pakistani military, and lots of New Zealanders were there with their kids. And we would all stand together in school assembly. And when they would sing Advance Australia Fair, the Australian national anthem, we would all sit there and sing together Advance Australia backwards. We don't know. We had basically nationalistic military dads who were always making fun of Australia. So we all just knew that when we were told that we had to sing the national Australian anthem of the country, we'd have to change all the words, which we did, and we'd all sing it together. Never really got in trouble for it either. But yes, to me, it was just so strange to be in a place where everybody even cared what the anthem was. I mean, I go back, it took me ages before I learned the New Zealand anthem. But there you go. And, I'm sure, like I say, Australia would be welcome to join as a West Island of New Zealand, but you'd all have to learn Maori. So there you go. Italian national anthem is embarrassing. I'm trying to think. I'll probably recognize it if I heard it, but no. Seriously, the American anthem is spectacular, but it's like too spectacular to be sung by humans, and that's why I love it. It's like this amazing practical joke. Oh yeah, Hokkaido is now starting to actually urge businesses in Hokkaido. There's a problem that domestic tourism is now declining because hotels and restaurants are now charging rates that are basically aimed at foreign tourists coming in. So they're charging now like overseas hotel rates, which are unaffordable for domestic tourism, and everybody's canceling their trips to Hokkaido. So Hokkaido, to preserve domestic tourism, is asking Hokkaido businesses to adopt two-tier pricing, where you charge domestic travelers a certain price and you charge foreigners a foreign rate, which is common practice overseas. I do worry a little bit that if businesses start doing this, while of course the logical thing is to just say if you've got a foreign residence card or whatever, proof that you're a Japan resident, you pay the Japan price. Problem is, of course, you're talking about countryside, rural Japan. Not everyone's going to figure that out. And if I go up to Hokkaido, I'm going to just get into drama up there, and I'm just going to get charged, the overseas rate, which I can't afford. I'm sure that's going to become a problem. Although honestly, I think the idea makes sense because right now Japan is kind of becoming like Thailand. It's becoming a place where foreign tourists are pricing locals out of their own economy, just because the yen is so absurdly cheap at the moment, which makes it a great time to come here, except it's too hot. But even then, I mean, we'll see. So an earthquake where, yes, I think I predicted, I did this because I predicted that, yes, when it's a really long earthquake, that means that it's got a high magnitude rating, which, yes, I nailed that. Rochelle Kopp talking again about her activism over the Meiji Jingu project to Busan Kevin. He's got a podcast, which he's been pretty active on, so I've shared the link to that. And finally, this is how Japan sees you. They've got a graphic summary of the differences between Democrats and Republicans. Some people saying that this is actually more nuanced and accurate than most reporting in America about the differences. Everybody seemed to be most upset. All the Republicans, in fact, all the Democrats seemed very offended that fried chicken was seen as something that was exclusively a Republican thing. Also, I didn't know that Pepsi was like a Republican thing. But there you go. Starbucks sponsored the RNC, the convention. So who really knows? But this is how Japan basically. And in a way, while you could say this is a dramatic, reductionist oversimplification of politics in America, in some ways this is much more nuanced and detailed than anything that you hear coming out of America about its own politics. So there you go. I'm going to wrap up. We're a few minutes over. Oh, I will say this. This was actually. Japan has a supercomputer which, since COVID, when everyone was using it to develop vaccines and figure out population spread and everything, Japan naturally, and in Japanese culture, what people cared about was where are the germs going and are they hitting me? And they developed all these simulations of someone sneezes or coughs, where are their germs going? And if someone's jogging, that seems unhygienic, so are they going to cover me in germs? So they have all these supercomputer. This is what some of the most powerful computers in the world were being used to simulate what happens when someone sneezes and where do all the germs go. And it shows how all the people behind people in escalators get coated in germs from sneezes and coughs. Apparently, the most common request to seeing this being released by the Japanese government was wanting the government to do a simulation showing what happens with farts in the same situation. So I will share that, of course, if it becomes available. And this is Japan, so honestly, it's entirely possible that it might happen. But there you go. I'm going to wrap it up there. That is actually, there we go. There's the link from last week. So we got through it pretty much exactly 1 hour. We've got a final question from Dan H. So where is that? Imagine how weak the yen would be if there were no tourists. Yeah, possibly. I mean, if there were, that's right. If there were no tourists, that's right. They're buying yen, so that's right. They're holding the yen up. That is indeed. The answer is Whitney. That's right. The best singer of the year. That's definitely true. At least before the cocaine and Bobby Brown, definitely. All of that. BGP, good to see you. How you feeling? Good, feeling a lot better. Looking forward to hanging around. I'm going to be doing the after party next. I've been actually beat matching all the public lists of like all the top. I'm going to put lots of new music because I've got all the new music rankings and stuff. I've got it all set to go. So I'm going to go set that up right now. And if you want to hang around. We'll post the link to the after party. In fact, maybe Aaron, if you could do the honors for that. Otherwise, I will see you all in a minute. Hang around on the channel. It's going to be live on the channel in a separate thread. And peace. Have a good week, everybody. Take care. Stay hydrated if you're in the Northern Hemisphere. Stay warm if you're in the Southern Hemisphere. I haven't forgotten about you. Have a good week and boom. Peace.